All right, let's dive right in. Today, we're going to explore two absolutely massive thinkers who, in a way, bookend the entire transition from the pre-modern to the modern world. We're talking about the great theologian Thomas Aquinas and the foundational sociologist Max Weber.
So have you ever stopped to wonder how we got here? How our entire way of thinking shifted from a world that was all about finding a sacred ultimate purpose to one that's obsessed with cold, hard, measurable efficiency? That's the huge question we're tackling.
On one hand, you've got Thomas Aquinas, back in the 13th century. Think of his work as building a giant moral cathedral, a breathtaking system where everything, from politics to economics, was designed to lead humanity toward union with God, or Tianzi. Then, centuries later, you get Max Weber. He's standing in the ruins of that same cathedral, analyzing how it all came apart to create the world we now live in, a world he famously called an iron cage.
To really get this, we've got to start at the most basic level, how they saw reality itself. It's almost like they were describing two completely different operating systems for the world. One was all about a sacred order, the other, a disenchanted world.
For Aquinas, the world was what we'd call enchanted. Now, what does that mean? It means that everything, and I mean everything, was shot through with divine purpose. The movement of the planets, the rules of society, even the price of a loaf of bread, it all had a place in a sacred story written by God. It was a world full of meaning.
Now, fast forward to Weber's time. He looked around and saw a world that had been disenchanted. All that magic, all that sacred meaning had been systematically pushed out by science, by bureaucracy, by cold calculation. The world was no longer a beautiful mystery to be a part of. It was a problem to be solved, a machine to be optimized.
So as you can imagine, this completely different view of the world leads to a huge split in how they even approach the topic of religion. Was it the ultimate truth with a capital T, or just another thing to be analyzed?
Think of it this way. Aquinas was the ultimate insider. As a theologian, he wasn't just studying religion. He was living within it. For him, it was the normative truth, the standard by which everything else was judged. His fundamental question was, what is God's will? But Weber? He was the quintessential outsider. As a sociologist, he took a step back. He wasn't asking if a religion was true. He was asking, how does a particular set of beliefs cause people to act in a certain way?
And this brings us to the real heart of the matter, maybe the single biggest difference between their two worlds. And that's the very definition of what it means to be rational.
Aquinas' world operated on what Weber would later call value rationality. It's pretty straightforward. An action is rational if it's in line with a deeply held value. Is it just? Is it good? Does it lead you closer to God? If the answer is yes, then it's a rational thing to do. The why is what matters most.
But Weber saw that the modern world runs on a totally different logic: instrumental rationality. Here, rationality has nothing to do with morality or ultimate values. A decision is rational if it's the most efficient, most calculable way to get from point A to point B. The end goal could be anything. The rationality is purely in the how.
Let's use an example to make this crystal clear. Take charging high-interest loans, or usury. For Aquinas, this is fundamentally irrational. Why? Because it's unjust. It exploits the needy. It violates a core moral value, so it's a non-starter. But from the perspective of modern, instrumental rationality, it's perfectly rational. It's an incredibly efficient and predictable way to generate profit. The morality of it just doesn't factor into the calculation.
Okay, so what happens when an entire society pivots from one kind of reason to another? What are the real-world consequences of this massive shift in thinking?
Well, this is where Weber tells a fascinating and kind of tragic story. He argued that it all started with certain Protestant groups who had an intense work ethic. They worked relentlessly, not to get rich, but as a way to prove to themselves that they were destined for salvation. But here's the crazy twist. That religious fervor unintentionally created the perfect mindset for modern capitalism. And once that powerful economic system was up and running, it didn't need the original religious fuel anymore. The spiritual motivation faded, but the machine just kept on going.
And this is the result. We end up in what Weber so powerfully called the iron cage. It's this rigid, hyper-rational, bureaucratic system that we are all born into. We didn't create it, but we are forced to live by its rules, constantly driven by this logic of efficiency, whether we want to or not.
So let's just pull back for a second and look at the whole journey. This really is an epic story, moving from a metaphorical cathedral to a very real cage.
I mean, just look at this table. It's a complete 180-degree turn. You go from an enchanted world to a disenchanted one, from the perspective of a theologian inside the system to a sociologist outside it, from a reason based on goodness to a reason based on efficiency, and the ultimate goal shifts from a divine order to a rational iron cage. It's a profound transformation.
So why does any of this matter today? Well, because this isn't just a history lesson. This comparison gets right to the heart of the world we're all navigating right now.
You could say the entire story of Western civilization is captured right here. It's the story of moving from a world organized around a quest for salvation to a world organized by the logic of a spreadsheet. Aquinas' life project was to build that beautiful moral cathedral, showing the way to God. Weber's project was to act as a sort of archaeologist, sifting through the ruins to explain how we use those very same stones to build our efficient, powerful, but maybe deeply impersonal iron cage.
And that really leaves us with a huge question to think about. There's no doubt we have gained incredible power, unprecedented efficiency, and a level of control over our world that would have been unimaginable to Aquinas. But in building this cage, this perfectly optimized system, you have to wonder, what did we lose? What ultimate purpose, what shared sense of meaning got left behind inside the walls of the iron cage?